Domo domo, what is up everybody? Welcome back. We are here again for Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 123, Shibuya Incident part 41 now. So definitely if you haven't caught, I put up a couple of videos this week, little bonus Jujutsu Kaisen videos. One in relation to the manga. Last week we had part 40, so I figured it was a good time to check in, and I have a timeline video kind of going through all the events and kind of putting timestamps on it, so definitely check that out right here if you're interested in that. And I also put out a kind of an anime focused video talking about the online streaming event that they had the other day right here, so check those out if you would like, and thank you very much if you choose to support that way. But let's get those out of here. Be sure to stick around because I think there are a lot of things in here that, you know, you just kind of get wrapped up in the hype of Kuiseki, and you kind of gloss over the possible implications of a lot of the little hints of what we might be able to expect over the next couple weeks of chapters based on what happens here. So be sure to stick around and let's get right into it. Here we go. Jujutsu Kaisen obviously has been doing very well, and seems to be kind of in like the top 5 or so of the kind of the table of contents if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Not only is it on the cover, but we get this awesome color couple pages of here. Kuiseki, I really like the way that you know, she's talking to Nita. She's saying don't, you know, Nita, remember the assistant manager that they first met at the Yasuhachi Bridge arc? And then you know, she's telling them, so apparently the fact that Shoko was is in Shibuya. sorry. Oh, all right, I'm good. Apparently the fact that Shoko is in Shibuya is kind of being kept under wraps. It's on a need-to-know basis, apparently. So it seems certainly that Kuiseki didn't know, but Fushiguro did, right? Which is interesting, and it'll be a question of whether Itadori knows as well. So, you know, she's kind of going on saying that, yeah, we didn't purposely tell you because, you know, we purposely didn't tell you because, you know, and Kuiseki obviously very intuitive. Yeah, because if I knew that there was the safety net that is Shoko, then I would probably go and do something reckless like this, right? And then she further goes on to explain that the paramedic was probably conveniently late to kind of keep her out of trouble as well. But Nobara is making her way back in, and this really cool, just this one frame right here of Kuiseki. Of course, she's saying something very triumphant and all that too, but just I like the way that the art is, you know, obviously you kind of got the outlines, the Akutami Gege kind of touch with the thick outlines, and then just the coloring. It looks just so cool, right? But then we do get this awesome double page color spread here. They're eating their little ice creams, kind of a summertime kind of vibe. Kuiseki with the spoon, and we've got Gojo eating most likely a gari-gari-kun, which maybe those of you that have lived in Japan or been to Japan know it's kind of like a very, very popular Japanese popsicle. It's soda flavored, as they call it. The blue one is, anyways. They're famous for the blue one. And it's super cheap, you know, it's like 50 cents a pop. If even, it's even cheaper. It used to be, anyways. I don't know how much it is now, but it's very cool. So I like this kind of little very stylish double page spread here. Even the way that the sunlight is kind of hitting Kuiseki's hair and all that, and yeah, very, very cool. But then we immediately move back to Itadoris Fight here. And what a crazy panel here to begin with. The civilians getting absolutely skewered here by Mashto, and then you know, Mashto using them as kind of like a as a weapon. Terrible. But you know, he kind of goes on to mention, maybe I should have had Dagon leave a few more. Remember last chapter, a couple chapters ago, we saw that you know, Dagon had slurped up all the civilians, or a lot of the civilians that were in the subway. But Mashto's not, he's not really sweating it too much, and boom, he tosses the bodies at Itadori. And obviously this is the kind of thing that gets to Itadori, right? And obviously Mashto is exploiting that. Obviously it wouldn't be characteristic of Yuji, even though how much he grows, it wouldn't be characteristic of him to just be like, whatever, you know, like, forget these bodies. Like, you know, he still has that side to him. So I do like that, and it's very realistic, right? But on page 7 here, you know, Yuji asking if they're okay, and then, oh, this is crazy. Oh, what is this? Yeah, and this big head, and then pop, right into Yuji's eyes here, the blood. And right here, you're kind of like, uh-oh, what's going to happen? But then kind of flashes sideways. Remember, these two fights are happening at the same time. Obviously evident throughout this chapter, but I kind of like what they're doing here with the going back and forth, and how one fight affects the other and stuff. And obviously as we kind of move on later in the chapter, we kind of see the repercussions of that for Mashto anyways. But I'll talk a little bit more about what I think will happen in the next couple of chapters because of that. But Kuiseki has been informed by Nanami, and possibly even Yuji as well, that to avoid the patch face's hands, right? So it's obviously intel is king, and that kind of intel will sway a fight. So it's obviously Mashto. But the thing is, this is the double of Mashto, right? So he goes on to explain on page 10 here, saying that although he can change his own form, he can't manipulate transfigured humans, and he can't manipulate other people's souls, right? So even if he were to touch Kuiseki here, he wouldn't be able to manipulate her, or he can't throw the transfigured humans like the real Mashto is against Itadori right now. But Kuiseki here, of course, we find out later on that she's a little bit wiser than Mashto gives her, but Mashto thinks that Kuiseki's kind of being a little bit too cautious, even though she doesn't have to be. And then Mashto also does go on to say that if I'm not fighting Itadori, I can manipulate my body as much as I want to without incurring risks, referring to the fact that, you know, the real body Mashto fighting Itadori right now, he has to be careful about how big he goes too, because the bigger he goes, the weaker he is as well in terms of like toughness and stuff. Plus he's a bigger target, which spells trouble against someone like Itadori. But this one doesn't have to worry about that against Kuiseki. So we move on a couple pages here. It kind of turns into this the porcupine hand. I like this on page 13 here. We have Kuiseki, you know, saying like, yeah, I know that, but sometimes you just gotta try. And it's kind of I like it because, you know, when you first read it, you're kind of like, oh yeah, she's a shonen heroine and things like that, but you kind of come back to this line after you know the reveal later on in the chapter. You're kind of like, so she was playing, you know, she was just acting up to the whole act. So it's funny, and obviously Mashto, kind of the reaction that I often sometimes have when I see those kind of moments in Shonen Jump, a little bit too on the nose, like, I'm going to protect my friends, kind of lame. So I kind of like Mashto breaking the fourth wall here a little bit. Very obviously, this is what makes Jujutsu Kaisen so cool, are the tactics and stuff, right? And obviously the kind of the comparisons to something like Hunter x Hunter, almost the kind of the intricacies of the fight, not just two swords going at it and this and that. And I won't go on. I won't go on any more than that. But you see Kuiseki drop a handful of nails, and then she uses hairpin, but it's not like the hairpin actually hits Mashto. So Mashto is confused, like, what is that all about? And now she's coming down, like, she ran away from me up, and now she's coming down at me, like, what's with her? But of course, Nobara comes in with another hairpin, and then this is what, so I had that moment, I was just like, oh my god, that's so cool. On page 16, frame 2, the first hairpin was meant to kind of basically just be like a little shake, right? So you kind of shake the ground, and the nails are pointing kind of at least above ground, at least for a split second, right? And then Nobara hit another hairpin at that exact moment of all those nails, and now instead of the nails just kind of going like downwards, they're shooting upwards diagonally, right? So what we see here against Mashto, and now he's immobilized for at least a split second here, and Nobara obviously pounces on that chance, and then she has a nail ready right at Mashto's head, and Mashto, right, even though he got kind of hit with all these nails, he's just like, so what? But he does not know about Nobara's resonance, and I can't believe I didn't see this one coming, especially when you know that it's two Mashtos, that the idea of the resonance and hitting one would hit the other kind of thing. I was kind of vexed. I was like, God damn, I can't believe I didn't see that one coming. But so cool. Obviously, I don't need to explain too much, but you know, she hits this double Mashto, which technically speaking is just, it's a part of the body, right? Like, and of course the comparison would be back in, I think it was chapter, I want to say like late 50s or early 60s, against Kechizu and Eso at the Yasuhachi Bridge arc. Remember when we first saw her use resonance against, I believe they cut off Eso's like arm or something, and then she hit the arm, remember, and then Eso was running away on the truck, but then he got hit, right? So this is basically like that. Mashto would be the body part in this equation, and then that relays back to the real body where the soul is. So it seems that resonance is the idea that if you hit like a body part, remember Nobara even used resonance on herself when she had the kind of the blood coursing through her. Remember Eso had kind of poisoned them with the blood, but she used that to her advantage, so she hit the blood, which hit Eso and Kechizu. So kind of the same idea here. It seems that it targets the soul, which would be in the real body, on page 19 here with Mashto. And then Yuji does recognize this at least. So he's like, oh, that looks like Kugisaki's move, right? But he doesn't know at this point that there is a double, though. So he's kind of confused at this point, right? Like, Kugisaki, that's why he's kind of like, huh? And we also have to remember that Kugisaki doesn't really realize, as she's using this first resonance, that there is a double as well. I mean, we go on a couple pages here, and then she's like, you're a double or something, aren't you? But when she first used resonance, she doesn't really realize that, right? You know, we get this kind of explainer page on page 20, how it goes to the real body, but then the damage to the real body also kind of relays back to the double Mashto, right? That's why we see both getting damaged with just one hit. But then Mashto, you know, kind of goes on to explain that that his natural enemy isn't only Itadori, but also Kugisaki in this sense. I think it's, yeah, I mean, it's a very triumphant moment, and it's very cool, but it's a little bit of an exaggeration if you ask me. If Kugisaki were up against real Mashto, I don't know if she'd really stand a chance, but as much as I like Kugisaki, so it's a little bit of a it's a little bit of a grandiose statement if you ask me, saying that she's also a natural enemy. Like Yuji really is, because he's immune to the effects of the transfiguration. So that makes sense. But Kuiseki, yeah, she has this resonance, and this situation very much fits her abilities. So maybe right now, yes, she's a very tactically advantageous opponent. But anyways, we kind of get a little bit more here about Kugisaki's thought process. She's a very smart, very battle smart, and she is very intuitive. You know, she's often acts very kind of, she's very verbose and this and that, but she is very smart though. That's what I like about, you know, characters like her and Fushiguro and stuff. As she notices, she felt this burst of cursed energy somewhere else. The burst of cursed energy somewhere else being the real Mashto body that's being hit, the one that's fighting Itadori right now, right? So she recognized that. She's like, wait a second, I felt that somewhere else just now. Plus, your cursed energy isn't really all that strong, if I'm honest, and you didn't try to just grab me before. There's something off. You must be a double or something, aren't you? So that was a very cool moment, very triumphant. But this is kind of where we have to kind of analyze what will happen in the upcoming chapters. To be honest, I don't think that this is actually going to last for too much longer. I think next week we might actually have the two groups coming together. Remember, we have Mashto, this double Mashto can communicate seemingly telepathically with the real body Mashto. Remember, as Mashto first split up, there was that little line saying like, you don't have to say that, I can, kind of implying that I can understand you even without you actually saying something. They're part of the same body, right? I think right now, since she used resonance, and then the real body Mashito is going to be very much immobilized, at least for a second or two. But that's all Itadori needs. He sees that Mashito's kind of out of commission for a second, and man, he is going to be going in. You can bet on that. So I think what's going to happen probably is that Mashito, the real body Mashito, is going to be under some serious pressure, and then this one's going to recognize that. He's going to kind of feel it, and then he's going to start running back towards the real body Mashito to help him, and then Nobara will probably give chase, right? So I think that they will kind of run into each other. But as I mentioned earlier in the chapter, we have to be careful because neither... So this Nobara does recognize the fact that this is probably a double and that there is the real body elsewhere right now, but she doesn't know that it's fighting Itadori. So that's the situation with Kugisaki. And the situation with Itadori is that he doesn't even know that Mashito had split up in the first place. He sees the fact that Kugisaki's kind of move had hit him, but he doesn't put two and two together. Like, how could he? He doesn't know that Mashito can make a double of himself. So it will be a question of how Mashito will kind of exploit that, possibly, because Mashito knows what's going on both sides, right? Because they can kind of telepathically communicate with each other. So it's kind of scary to think, especially with Kugisaki going back towards the real body Mashito. Remember, she's in the mindset that she doesn't know which one is going to be which, possibly. So I think that's going to be kind of the confusing part, is that possibly there's going to be like two Mashitos at the same time and they're not going to know which one is which, possibly. I don't know. But I do think that this fight is probably not going to go on for too much longer. And I think the flow of the story will kind of focus a little bit on Kugisaki as well, especially the beginning of this chapter is kind of giving us those vibes that Akutami Sensei is kind of finally giving Kugisaki a little bit of the due diligence in terms of explaining what her story is all about. So remember, we've had all these kind of down moments lately. Now we have this kind of chapter of triumph. And I think maybe, you know, next chapter we're going to have Itadori kind of going in a little bit on the real Mashto. But then Akutami Sensei, you know, obviously I always explain this with these kind of flows of the plot lines, is that you always have to keep in mind the ebb and flow. So we've had the down, now we have this moment of triumph. I think we're going to be in for another down. Possibly next chapter or a couple of chapters from now. So I think we will get a little bit of a scare with Kugisaki too. And possibly a little bit of I don't know if we're going to go as far as like a flashback or anything like that, but certainly the implications seem to be that we're going to be focusing on Kugisaki a little bit more here. And I don't think that Kugisaki is in any kind of mortal danger. In the sense, like, they'll do something really, really serious to her, like kill her off. If like, I think she could be seriously injured, or heavily, heavily damaged somehow, or possibly even like partially manipulated by Mashto if she ends up running into the real one. But the idea of her being straight killed off, I think would be, and I'm going to say it would be a huge, huge mistake on Akutami Sensei's part. Again, and I'm not the mangaka or whatever, but the Nanami blow was big enough, and I think it was, as much as I don't like the fact that he's dead, I think it was effective, and it kind of served a purpose, so to speak, right? And, you know, we're not talking about like a seinen manga here. And I know Chainsaw Man is going off the rails. Man, I love Chainsaw Man. I'm not going to lie. But Chainsaw Man has certainly kind of been pushing the envelope. And I don't know what it's doing in Shonen Jump at this point, if I'm honest. It's fantastic, like I said. But Shonen Jump is always, it's Shonen Jump. There are kind of a certain set of rules that typically you have to kind of abide by, right? So I think Kugisaki, she'll be okay. She'll be okay, and okay, like she won't be killed or anything like that. I know a lot of chatter right now is that, oh my god, is something going to really happen to Kugisaki? Especially, you know, with the last chapter was such a scare with the way that, you know, she ran into Mashto and like, and Mashto was saying, oh, I'm gonna hang Kugisaki's dead corpse in front of Itadori and provoke him that way, right? I don't think so. That would be a big mistake. And I think that would really put a dampener. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I don't think that they can do that. You know, and I don't know how much of the intricacies in terms of like the decision making and things like that too, but like Fujimaki Sensei with Chainsaw Man seems to kind of be going at the beat of their own drum and this and that, but I have a feeling that certain decisions have to be approved and things like that, right? And something like with Kugisaki, I don't know. You can't do that, especially with kind of the anime coming out and kind of the promotional material and things like that. No, I don't think so. But and it's not just me talking like out of denial or anything like that, but I don't think, no, you can't do that. I would be extremely disappointed. But anyways, I think for next chapter we can expect maybe these. I like the way that they're kind of switching back and forth and stuff here, and I think what's going to happen is that these two fights are going to eventually become one. Yeah, anyway, sorry, I was just kind of rambling a little bit there at the end, but yeah, definitely let me know what you guys think too. Predictions are always welcome in the comments. So yeah, it's but Hey, again, if you didn't catch some of those other videos that I put out this week, please do enjoy. But otherwise, hey, I hope you guys are staying safe. Spread that positive juju. Be good to one another, and we will see you in the next video. All right. Hey, thanks very much for coming by. We will see you around. You know how we do. Manga yoroshiku.